My goal is later today to write a column ranking the top 3 to 5 biggest concerns of Tennessee's football team heading into this offseason. I think most would say offensive line, but Caleb said maybe the defensive line. So where would you rank the top concern and or concerns if you want to go a little bit deeper? And then we'll get some input from our message board. How would you rank the biggest concerns?
Two are very easy for me. It's almost like 1A and 1B, the offensive line and wide receiver. The offensive line, they only have one starter returning. They have not done a good job of developing offensive linemen. They're going to be counting on a true freshman at right tackle. And Tennessee does not have a good history under Josh Heupel and this staff of having first-year offensive linemen perform well. They're losing Cooper Mays, so I thought he was an all-SEC player. Spraggins was a good offensive lineman. I think the offensive line is a huge concern because I don't see not only replacing, but I don't see upcoming talent that I like other than David Sanders, the freshman. And it's hard as a freshman to play offensive tackle in this league. The other one's wide receiver. I see more talent at wide receiver. Therefore, I'm going to say offensive line is the bigger concern. But again, Tennessee's not developed wide receivers that they've recruited. You got Jeremiah Smith and Ryan Williams out there putting up huge numbers for Ohio State and Alabama, respectively. And Mike Matthews gets 8 catches, whatever it was. So I have concerns about their ability to develop these wide receivers. The third one is harder for me in terms of trying to pick it out. Is it at running back? You got Star Thomas coming from Duke. You got Peyton Lewis. You got Deshaun Bishop. Is it linebacker? Or if you don't have Jerron McCoy, is it the secondary? I'm going to lean a little bit toward linebacker, and that's certainly debatable, but here would be my argument. I think that they're pretty decent as far as run stoppers. I think they're very weak as pass defenders. I saw teams, in particular Ohio State, but game after game, isolating Tennessee's linebackers on somebody, receiver, tight end, running back. They couldn't cover them. And so all of a sudden, are they going to be able to cover them with basically the same players? I have doubts about that. So I'm going to put linebacker number 3 on my list, even though I'm hesitant to do that. But those are my top 3.
I was going to go with the Quattro as this, and Caleb, I want you to jump in. Ball's biggest off-season concern is I'm going to go offensive line, defensive line, wide receiver, and running back, not to besmirch what you said at linebacker, but I'd already punched it in. The Hyams Report brought to you by National Fitness Center. Unmatched value, limitless options. Begin your fitness journey today. The link is right down below. Caleb?
Jimmy, yeah, I want to go straight to the defensive line because I don't want to just say defensive line because I think they're fine at edge rusher. I think Jordan Ross is going to be as good. I actually think he'll be better than James Pierce, honestly. But what about defensive tackle specifically? You know, Amari Thomas is gone. I think Bryson Easton is gone.
No, Easton's back.
Oh, he's back. Okay, but Elijah Simmons is gone. Amari Thomas is gone, and Omar Norman-Lott are gone. A huge part of their defensive line success last year was being able to run so many different players. Are we sure they're going to be able to do? We don't know that they can do that this year, do we?
No, they're not as deep, but I don't know if anybody in the country was as deep as Tennessee on the defensive line, which I think plays well for this team because I looked at the defensive linemen that they have coming back. Caleb, they're about 7 or 8 that I like. Now, they're not going to be able to rotate like they did. But if you can go 7 or 8 deep on a defensive line, that's not bad. I like what they're returning. Now, don't get me wrong. They lost some really good players. But I think Joseph, well, you mentioned the edge rusher, so they're really good. But they got Hobbs, they got West, they got Weathersby. They've got some pretty darn good players. Eason, I think, is going to be one of the better players in the league. Very, very talented player. So I actually think they're going to be okay on the defensive line. Not as good, but I think they're going to be good on the defensive line because, to their credit, to Rodney Garner's credit, he played a ton of people, and he's got a lot of guys coming back with experience. So I'm not as concerned about the D-line as I am other positions.
Let me flip it to the other side at running back, and I will be totally upfront. I think I'm guilty of this. I think that Dylan Sampson benefited from an offense that fit his skills. So despite his size and all that sort of thing, I think he fell into the right place at the right time. That being said, I think they can replace him with Peyton Lewis. But regardless if you agree or disagree, Jimmy, I think we would certainly say with a smaller Bishop that depth could be a concern. It didn't crop up last year, but at running back, it typically does.
It didn't crop up last year because Dylan Sampson was a warrior.
Yeah.
Although he cropped up against Ohio State. Now, because he got hurt and he had a hamstring injury and barely played in that game. I think Peyton Lewis is a pretty good running back. My concern about him is he does not have the burst that Sampson has. And that, in my opinion, is a prerequisite in this offense. You have got to hit the hole quickly in this up-tempo offense. And Sampson could do it. Jalen Wright could do it. To a certain extent, Jabari Small could do it. I don't know if Lewis has the quickness to do it. I think he's got more power than Sampson. So that concerns me a little bit. I think Star Thomas from Duke is a really good addition. Is he RB1? I don't know. I think he and Peyton Lewis will fight it out. Deshaun Bishop is a nice running back. Is he among the better running backs in the SEC? No. So I think they're okay at running back, but I think Sampson made them very good at running back last year. I'll probably give him, I guess, more credit than you do as far as being a very productive running back, because I saw him not only with a good burst, he put on some weight. He showed more power. He became a better pass protector. And so I really thought, well, he was the SEC Offensive Player of the Year. I thought highly of Sampson last year.
Great.
Jimmy, to your point, how much do we underrate just the willingness to run hard with running backs? I mean, I go back to, because Sampson ran hard,
Yes.
and I go back to in the 90s, I think we all agree as a pure talent, Jamal Lewis was better than Travis Henry, but I thought Travis Henry was more productive at Tennessee because he ran harder than Jamal Lewis, honestly.
Jamal Lewis was more productive as a true freshman. His production tailed off the next 2 years. I don't think it ever tailed off with Travis Henry. Travis Henry ran hard, and he did it more consistently. Some thought, I heard this whispering, that Jamal Lewis was saving himself a little bit for the NFL. I don't know if that's true or not. But consistently, I thought Travis Henry was more productive. He's all-time leading rusher in Tennessee history. Jamal Lewis is a more talented running back. I'd take him over Travis Henry in that regard. But I won't argue with you about Travis Henry. And running hard, Tennessee talks about the +2, all right? And that means once you have contact, get 2 more yards. Whether you're Dylan Sampson, whether you're Deshaun Bishop, whether you were Jalen Wright, upon contact, get an extra couple of yards, which i.e. means run hard. And yes, I don't think that's talked about as enough. And I think Sampson and Wright and some other running backs at Tennessee have brought that to the table.
It's interesting. I want to turn it back to Nico, but or to Nico here in a second. But Jimmy, it sounds like to me that you think Dylan Sampson is more Travis Henry than he was Travis Stevens, which maybe I do. Stevens, I thought, fell in kind of the right situation with a great offensive line, but you're referring to Dylan Sampson, as you should, as the SEC Offensive Player of the Year, which is much more like Henry, who consistently ran hard all the time.
I think in that regard, I think Sampson is better than Travis Stevens. Travis Stevens did have an excellent offensive line. Do you think Tennessee's offensive line this past year was excellent?
No.
Do you think it was good as it was in 2001? I don't.
No.
And now,
They also sorry.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, and they also, back then, the teams had to account for Kelly Washington, Dante Stallworth, and Jason Witten in the passing game, too.
Yeah, they did. And so that worked against Sampson, right? Now, on the other side, the scheme at times probably worked his favor, because if you wanted to spread out with Tennessee, you would have an advantage in the numbers game as far as who you were blocking. And a lot of times, if you could zip through the line of scrimmage and get to the second level, there weren't defensive backs there to help oftentimes, which allowed Sampson to break off some long runs. But yeah, I would, as far as production, I would take Sampson closer to Henry, and I think he was a better back than Travis Stevens.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Do we so before we wrap this up, going back to a bit of a concern, you mentioned Tennessee secondary without Jermon McCoy could be a concern. Jamie, I got to be honest with you. I don't think Jermon McCoy is going to be where they need him to be, at least till the end of September or October. And
You may be
so I
right.
think that is a concern.
Yeah, you may be right. And history would tell you that's probably the case. Not everybody heals the same. But if he heals like an average human, not an average human being, an average football player, because football players aren't average human beings. If he recovers like an average football player, and in particular his position, because you've got to have complete confidence in your cutting ability and your change of motion and your backpedaling, just like you have to have complete confidence if you're a receiver and have a torn ACL and you're coming off of that. So now take him out of the equation. I'm not real high on Tennessee at safety. Maybe you are, but I'm not. I do like Ricky Gibson at the other corner, but man, McCoy's the glue back there. He's the best player. And so I think if he is out now, well, you got Syracuse to open the season. I don't know who their quarterback's going to be, so I'm not really sure how big of a concern that's going to be. But you got Georgia early, don't you? I don't have the schedule in front of me.
Third week of the year.
Yeah, so that could be a huge issue for Tennessee. So I think if McCoy is not ready to play or be productive in September, that could be huge for Tennessee because again, Syracuse may find a real good quarterback. We don't know in the portal. And then Georgia, I don't know how good Gunnar Stockton's going to be, but I got to figure he's going to be decent. And so, yeah, I think that could be an issue for Tennessee secondary.
I argue that we have the best message board in when it comes to Tennessee athletics. I'm not sure we have the classiest one. This comment, Henry, talking about Travis Henry, put tremendous effort in everything he done, including having kids. I don't know that we need to go there. Jimmy, you're move on. Just pretend that didn't happen. I saw you wince a little bit, and I was afraid you saw it in the message board chat.
Yeah.
Let's move on.